My name is Z-Trip, and I spin records.
See this beat right here? This is me all day. Come on, plug me in. Let me do my thing. Grab a girl in the spot, come on, and approach the floor. Whole point of this joint is to lose control.
And I produce records, and I'm an all-around good guy. I help feed the needy.
LB on top, the rap totem pole. Z-Trip on the deck, so you don't give a goddamn begging pots and pants. About to tear the spot down, every clip across down.
I do all sorts of good things. I'm a world champion bassoon player. I would have to say probably Marley Marl got me into DJing. Listening to him mix on WBLS back in the day, Red Alert, those cats. I totally learned a whole bunch of stuff I would have never actually have heard. I learned through them, through hearing them spin and hearing them mix records, and hip hop in general. And I actually got into it even prior to DJing. I was into graph. So I was sort of, it all just sort of happened at the same time. The name Z-Trip came, well, my name is Zach, and this cat Scott, in high school, he was like, yo, man, your name's Zach, and you're a trip, I'm going to call you Z-Trip. And, like, he said it, and a couple other cats in the crew said it, and before I knew it, it stuck, and, like, that's where, that's how it happened. I wish it was something that was cooler or had a better story, but that's it. I would say sort of everything up until this point. I can't really narrow it down to one thing. I mean, on one hand, opening for the Stones, 450,000 people in Canada, that's the biggest crowd I'll probably ever play to. Putting out a major label record, being on a major label, getting signed, that was really big to me. To be able to make a song with Chuck D, that's huge for me.
This is the dawn of a new era. Freedom people just pop and weave while led to believe that we all naive.
And also all the other MCs that are on my record. Really, really fortunate to work with those cats.
My records are played in the dark side of the spoon. My records are played in the dark side of the spoon. My records are played. His records are played. Everybody's records are played. The boss in. My records are played in the dark side of the spoon. The place I'm asking the B-side.
I never thought I was going to really ever be able to parlay this into anything other than nightclubs, and I'm really fortunate that I've been able to do that, and that's probably my greatest achievement.
I can't help but the shape I'm in. I can't sing, I ain't pretty, and my legs are thin. Don't ask me what I think of you. I might not give the answer that you want me to.
The fact that I'm still out here, I'm touring. I've got enough of a following and enough of an audience to actually maintain what I'm doing and keep building, to be able to afford for a tour bus or be able to afford equipment when I need it and to be able to work, like 10 months in a row nonstop and then take a month off. Like that's my biggest achievement. And not to have a boss, to be my own boss and to make my own decisions. And that's probably the biggest achievement out of all the other achievements, but they're all huge to me. That's kind of strange, isn't it? Like, Disney owns a Chuck D song in a roundabout way, doesn't it? That's kind of crazy. I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, having Chuck D on the song called "Shock and Awe," which is obviously directed at the political situation that we're in right now and the climate that we're in with war and with the people in power. It's kind of ironic that the label Hollywood is a Disney label and Disney's affiliated with. Was it Buena Vista, I think it was, that didn't want to put out Fahrenheit 9/11. So here you sort of have me in a very smaller scale doing the same message, saying the same things technically through a song with Chuck D on a label that is basically owned or in bed with the same people who made those decisions. Hopefully people will hear it and people will get it, and it'll make a couple people think at the very least for that moment about the climate that we're in right now. Maybe it'll help people change their ideas, their views, act. The inspiration for Shifting Gears was really just sort of accumulation of time, that I've been into hip-hop and sort of where it came from for me and where it's going and how I got sort of mixed up in all of it. It's very much a personal journey. And I was working on it for about a year, but prior to that I was working on another album for about a year that I couldn't get the samples cleared in the record I wanted to make, so I had to end up making this record, which wasn't a bad thing. Actually, I think it worked in my favor because a lot of people were or are doing the style of record I was going to make now. A lot of people have sort of emulated that style or copied it into the mainstream, so I don't think it would have been as punctual as this record. And I think this record, the one that the Shifting Gears record, is definitely a record that that half of the audience, it's sort of split in half. Half the people totally get it. The other half of the people don't necessarily get it right off the bat because it's not as easy to digest, but I've lost some people, but I've also gained some people, and that to me is sort of the good thing about it, because I never really want to make a record where I don't shake off some of something. It's like I need to shed my skin every time I put something out there, and also gain a bigger audience and newer people and open minds and push boundaries. And that's really what the album was about. Shifting Gears was about me moving from one place to another.
I can feel my heart racing.
Working with Chester was good. I mean, he's a cool cat, and he's very talented. And he and I sat down and wrote that song pretty fast, really. And we both wanted to do something that we hadn't done before, so we wanted to do, for him, everyone pigeonholes him as like the guy who screams over, the rock songs, and everyone's pigeonholed me as the guy who mixes hip-hop and rock together. And although we do those things, we're way deeper than I think a lot of people give us credit for. Those people, the people who just generalize. For me, it made me realize that I can actually make songs, I mean, I knew I could, but that's a bona fide song that made it to the radio, made it to #1 lists, and was getting a lot of airplay. And in my world, I sat down and was like, wow, man, I surprised myself on that one, which anytime I do that, I realize there's a whole nother road I could travel down. And hopefully I'll get a chance to work with more people that, aren't people that folks would think that I would. Work with Peter Gabriel one day, work with Mars Volta the next day work with Ludacris, whatever it is. I'm down to work with whoever is down to push their boundaries. I knew that sound was going to get ate up by people. DJs have been doing it for years, and it was only sort of a matter of time. When we sat down, P and myself sat down and made Uneasy Listening, we sort of just did it very much from a DJ perspective. We never really thought about it going any further than that. And when it blew up, we started to realize the potential that this sound had outside of the potential we already knew about. We knew it was sort of greater than where we had seen it go before. The only problem I have with it now is it seems that it gets a little too, I don't know, I want to say sort of homogenized in a sense. It gets a little too sort of factory. It feels a little too factory. People are getting, we need something, we need the new pop star vocal with the new indie rock instrumental, or we need whatever, and it sort of becomes a little too predictable and a little too not adventurous for me. And the whole point of me doing it and getting involved with it and liking the idea of taking two things and mixing them together is that I could take something you may totally know and something you may totally not know and mix them together, and you'd be like, well, I know that, but I have no clue what that is. And that was the whole sort of deal for me, was to try and do two things, because in one sense you showed your ability to lure people in with the familiar, but on the other hand, you gave them something completely interesting that made them feel like they were stupid for not knowing. It's gotten too predictable when you're using current things with other current things. It's sort of like, it's actually sort of an overdose. The term mashup was never really a thing we called it. We just called it blending records. But everyone called it mixing. They called it mixing. Go figure. I'm doing some remixes for some rock bands. I'm doing some remixes for some hip-hop acts. I'm doing a thing with Latif from Quantum. We're doing a mixtape thing. Looks like I'm doing a Def Leppard remix at some point. I just found out that I'm actually going to be opening for Aerosmith on a show in LA, and that's pretty big for me, man, because I grew up listening to those cats. And there was also talk about a Run DMC thing in the works. I try my hardest to do as much as I can on either side, because I never want to be too much of one thing. So there's a whole bunch of things coming down the road, and then there's other things I haven't even spoke about. And I guess it's always sort of keep an eye out, because every 6 months, every year, every 2 weeks, whatever it may be, I'm going to try and drop something on people that they haven't seen or haven't expected. Scratching DVDs and things of that nature, technology in general, will always factor into what DJs do, because we're always sort of technology nuts.
Do whatever you want to do, like do whatever you want to do, like do whatever you want to do, like this.
after you've sampled audio, just audio for so long, to be able to sample video is a super cool thing. And there's a lot of visual in my set as well tonight, and there's a little bit of scratching. But it's really hard because, you know, it's sort of like going, well, I heard somebody scratch fresh. It's like, well, everyone scratches fresh.
Break it down. Break it down. Break it down.
As long as people try and do things that aren't as predictable as you know, I guess as the predictable stuff, it would be, you know, that's sort of where I see it going. But, you know, you're always going to get the people who, once they see that something's hot, they just gravitate towards it and then they burn it out. So hopefully there's people out there pushing boundaries. I know there are. It's just you have to find them. And with the internet now, it's easier to find people that you know, you might be into in MySpace and all that stuff. There's so many different, you know, avenues now for people to express their art. So it's out there. You just got to dig for it.
And you know I can't live without my cereal.